what can you tell me? What can you tell me about? Let me just start with your podcast itself. Let's start there, and then you can, tell us
Well,
your life story and all of that. What can you tell us about the throne room with Beth Tarazi? For one, who is Beth Tarazi in the first place? Go from there.
all right. My name is Beth Tarasi, of course. I was born in 1986, September 20th. I was born in Orlando, Florida. And yeah, I think I had to hit a little continue button because an alert popped up on my screen. You started recording, and that was fine, I guess. Thank you for letting me know. My podcast is called The Throne Room with Beth Tarasi. It's kind of a long story about how the throne room came about. I'm not even sure how I came up with that name exactly. It's such a long and complicated thing. But I guess it was from the beginning that I realized people were treating me real weird. And compared to my brothers, they were not giving me any leadership capacity to do. I was also negatively called queen repeatedly in school. And so what I decided to do was own and positivize that name. Queen, the B word, bossy, shrill, sad, whatever. And that was how the word Denver Queen came about. My website is denverqueen.com. For those of you who don't know, that's where you will find, if you have not been a bad boy, you will find my Twitter, my Facebook. You can also read my WordPress blog, which discusses mainly what I do. My work is covered in the blog. For those that haven't even visited that site yet or are living under a rock, I'm also a choir person. I love to sing. I love to do music. I've been playing piano since I was like 2. So like practically since I was a real tiny girl, I was playing piano. And my family bought me my first upright when I was like 5. So I went from there. I currently don't have a real good working piano because my Yamaha YPT 300 apparently went bust and all the E's are not working. So I can't even play a full C chord. So now I have to
Oh
jump
gosh.
through and browse Guitar Center. And I'm just like, what do I want? So,
Okay. All right. Well, a little bit more, about me. Of course, you don't. Apart
mhm.
from me watching your, oh goodness.
Videos.
Yeah, let's turn off voiceover there. Apart from, me
Mhm,
commenting on your videos on when you go live on Facebook, we don't know each other.
mhm,
So let me just tell you, well,
mhm,
in case we have a new listener. So my name's Aaron Richmond,
mhm.
born 2nd of July 1991, born blind with glaucoma. Um, okay, now let me pause and go back to that. Did you think I was much younger than you or much older than you?
I thought you were older than me. And you know what's even funnier is that your birthday is right on my youngest brother's birthday. He was born about a year after you.
That's interesting. Yeah, I get that. A
Yeah.
lot of people a lot of people think I'm older just because of my demeanor and the way I talk,
Mm.
um it all depends. And then some people think I'm much younger, based on my demeanor and how I act. So it just depends. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah. So I was born with glaucoma and a congenital heart defect. And my story has been, really really quite interesting. My academics are in the field of international relations, and I'm a teacher. My day job is a teacher, and I work online. And I was doing something that I suspect that you were probably doing something similar. I was listening to a lot of
Mhm.
podcasts in the blindness community, and I felt that none of them, all of them are great, but they were never, approachable enough where someone, you know, like someone who has a podcast about a throne room could just come up and say, "Hey, I want to talk to you." And I felt that there was this huge void in the industry on the catalog that I could fulfill. And I started talking to myself, and the more I did that, the more I built up my podcast into the hobby that I love today of podcasting and content creation. So, why don't you tell us a little bit more, about, okay, the other thing that you talk a lot about in your lives, and one of the most interesting things that I want to be sure to fully address right now,
Mhm.
we'll cover a lot, but I want to address your motivation to write a book. Um, because I know someone, I've mentioned her before. I'm not going to name drop on the recording on purpose, but I've mentioned her before. And I completely support you in writing a book. I think it's the right thing. And why don't you talk to the audience? Guys, if you have never seen my video called Butterfly, where I interviewed Rebecca Meadows from Blue Butterfly Enterprises. Why don't, Beth, if you could remind us, what in the world are guardianships and why do we need to be afraid of that word and avoid them at all cost? Please remind the audience.
Thank you. Uh, Guardianships are a form of control. Guardianships have a lot of little pieces and parts in them that are considered evil. When put together, they look like the monster in your backyard. Let me explain each of the little parts and pieces for the audience so that in my book, I am working on the first part, like all the little vocabularies and stuff. So it's going to start out with vocabulary and words that you need to know when you're dealing with, whether you're the family member, whether you're the victim, whether you're the social worker talking to the family or victim of a guardianship or somebody. And I'll just go over some of these and these little vocabulary words. It's always important to start with these, and then you'll get into the depth and breadth of each, but I'm going to try to be short with each. The first thing a guardian will do is liquidate. Sometimes if you have a lot of money and things and you have an estate, they sit there and they go, okay, it's all ours, it's mine, or whatever. And the guardian will, if they are assigned to you, because the court may find you incompetent for any number of reasons. And they can even say the incompetence may be because of blindness, because of cerebral palsy, elderly. It's mostly the elderly, but it does have a good chunk of young folks with disabilities. Yeah. The first thing is liquidation, which means basically all of your money gets drained from your bank account. It's the same thing that happens when you get into a scam. Like if somebody sends you a bad check, or if you, by innocent ways, you give somebody your bank account number and all of that, then all of a sudden, boom, your money's gone. Your things are gone, but they go further. What they do is they'll sell your house. If you have a house, they'll sell it to meet dollars and cents. And all the proceeds benefit a predatory guardian. And that doesn't often happen, though, with family guardians, but oftentimes lawyers will tell them, spend all the money that this person has. And I had to disown so much stuff to apply for the benefits that I needed as a disabled person. Some of it might have been liquidated by the guardian. The next part of guardianship is called isolation. What it does is it isolates you. Duh. What you're told who to talk to. So for instance, Aaron, if you're in an isolating guardianship, they're going to say, well, you can't do this. You can't do your content creation, your podcasting. They'll take everything away from you, throw you in a nursing home, and say you can't even see your mama, daddy, Aunt Lou, and Uncle Sam, or whoever the hell they want you not to see. And then they try and put restraining orders on the people who are trying to decipher why you are in unsanitary living conditions in that nursing home years later. And they tell them, well, he's okay, but he doesn't like seeing you anymore. And they'll make up sob stories about it. The next part about guardianship is there's cremation, which often occurs after the death of a client. There is an Orlando guardian, Rebecca Farrell, who was recently caught with boxfuls of ashes in her office and she's being charged with, I don't know if it's exploitation or whatever, But her and this other guardian named Tracy Hudson, I'm naming them because they've been in the news. They're all over the internet.
Fine.
And
Fine.
these
I'm
are,
not. I'm not.
they're,
No. I'm. Thank you for educating. And this is. You're the type of
yes.
guest that I need. And
Mm-hmm.
this is oddly familiar to what Rebecca Meadows wrote about in her books. This is disturbingly familiar.
Mm,
So keep explaining. You're doing
this is
an amazing job. Go for it. Keep going.
okay. Okay.
So those
So then
people.
another piece, yes, another piece part to the guardianship, cremation will happen after death, but then there are other things that the guardians do. Neglect is a very minor, but then it becomes a major part of a guardianship. There was an old lady named Anna Cassidy who recently died, and all over the internet, her brothers, sons, David and Robert, are raising money to help get justice because their mother was left warehoused in an assisted living place with no help from caregiving. Over medication is another piece part to the guardianship. Basically, what they do is, like, I'll pick on you, Aaron, for a second. So
Sure.
if isolation and all those other little parts aren't enough, a guardian might say, okay, Aaron, I'm going to toss you into a nursing home. We're going to put sedatives in your food. I own you, as in Rosamund Pike's I Care a Lot, which I did see like twice. And I thought, what in the world? And what's funny about it's a Netflix satire on the guardianship industry, but this movie pretty much is accurate to a T with elder guardianships. But with young people with disabilities, guardianships stem from toxic family relationships, and it also stems from, I think it's patriarchal. It could also be labeled as some way to keep somebody silent, and there's just so many different layers of reasons why people get guardianships. But when a guardianship is gotten for an elderly person, there's a likely chance they'll die quicker. But with a young person, their life is ruined. So, like, for example, Aaron, let's suppose you're 18 and your parents got the guardianship for you at age 17. And they had held the guardianship for 15 years, at which time you could not do anything but go to some bohunk community college in the middle of nowhere. You could not really go out with your friends without your parents' permission. Oh no. You couldn't just marry the person you loved because he or she is, quote, sexually experienced, quote. And you never had any children. You never had a job. And in my case, I actually was given a death threat for calling people out for basically getting on the wrong side of a buddy. And, you know, and then they start using the guardianship as an excuse to say, oh, well, Florida was correct in getting the guardianship. You're a moron. You're a whatever mental health slur they could aim at me. And then I get this call saying that if you don't leave my friends alone, I will cause you pain. I wonder if she meant kill me. So I wanted to get her to the police, but her phone was disconnected by then.
Right. And
Yeah.
so these are really really bad. And
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes the other factor that Rebecca Meadows, gosh, if I, you know what, if I had known that you were so you were in, I'm guessing that you were in a guardianship at one point, right?
At one
Yeah.
point, it was like for about 15 to 16 years.
Oh,
It was discharged about a month after my wedding.
oh my God. Oh my. If I had, I mean, you're doing a magnificent job. If I had known that you wanted, if I had known that you were going to take it, it's totally fine that you are. But if I had known you were going to go in this direction, I would have set this up. Well, I don't know if it would have been good. I would have set this up with me, you, and Rebecca Meadows at the same time, who has not only written two books about this nonsense, but she's working on some other things. Um,
That's
you
weird. I thought she was someone else. I never even knew Rebecca Meadows. I didn't think about Rebecca Meadows. Um, I don't know who anyone is anymore in the blind community, honestly, because and this is another thing I kind of want to talk about in
sure,
my book.
sure.
But my book is basically going to be called What Citizens Need to Know About Guardianship. That'll be the main title. And it's kind of an emoticon of what citizens need to know about government. If you ever went to middle school and took some social government classes, there was a book out there called What Citizens Need to Know About Government. And I think, well, why the hell did anybody not think of writing a title like What Citizens Need to Know About Guardianship? Because like the rest of the world doesn't seem to care. And what I'm trying to do is write a book in plain Jane English. No weird legal mumbo jumbo, nothing with numbers or statutes or big freaking Harvard level vocabulary words interspersed with the guardianship stuff itself. And I also want to write it in laid back, plain language for just anybody so that we get a nice broad audience. And I also want to say that since the guardianship was discharged, though, the blind community has pretty much been aiming pistols at me. And I'm not saying real pistols, but when I asked for something for myself, I've noticed that there are blind folks who have been turning away from me. I've lost a lot of friends on this activism journey, but I've gained others. And most of the friends I've gained, oddly enough, are not members of consumer orgs such as ACB or NFB. They are workers or people such as there's a guy named Rick that I work with, and there's a Hillary and Luann Fleming from Colorado, and they're all from a cited anti-guardianship and family probate, blah, blah, blah organization that helps out with, corrupt guardians, but they go further. What we also do is we want to make sure that the courts are not corrupt, that judges are not, pal-palling with their buddies and everything like that, and that lawyers who are doing the right thing are not disciplined for it. And, that's what they do. It's the organization, man, I should have put that in the description, but it's faceus.org. If you want to look at it, it's FACEUS.org, and it stands for Families. Let me think. Families Against Court Embezzlement Unethical Standards. It's weird, big words, but when you put the letters together, it makes a nice little face us. 2 words, and it works.
Yeah. So yeah, this is, and another thing that I've learned about this is that a lot of blind people end up getting into the guardianships. And I know that you know this, Beth, but you maybe just haven't gotten to it yet in your conversation.
Yeah,
it's really critical to mention that a lot of blind people get into guardianships without even knowing how they got into them. And that this is a huge problem, that you can get sucked into it without understanding that you're getting sucked into it. And then once you're sucked in, you can't get out unless you have a lawyer.
That's what happens. Exactly. That's what a lot of people say. In fact, parents also lie to courts about why their child needs a guardian.
Right.
When your child turns 18, I don't think that's necessarily a magical number that says, okay, fly away, little birdie. But my parents also manipulated and victim blamed me for being sexually abused by an older man in the business enterprise program at Daytona Beach, Florida. That's why they decided on the guardianship, so they could blame me and keep Rico, the guy who did this, out of the picture. I also received recently, I got this really nasty email about me in Daytona 17 years ago.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Can you, okay. Oh my God. Can you rewind it a little bit? I'm not, I've only heard just by watching you on Facebook. I've only heard your story through the live. So can you explain it in a little bit? Can you rewind it and explain what happened in Daytona, and then some guy did something, and then but then what's the connection? It was kind of a lot. I didn't quite catch the connection.
Oh,
Try to
okay.
explain it.
Let me. Okay, rewind. Let's do this.
Yeah.
Okay. So I was 17. It all started, and I have a blog post about the 5 stages of sexual abuse,
Oh
and it is
yeah,
in
yes, yes, yes.
stages, just like
You did, right? You did talk. You have talked about this before on your lives. I recall it. Yes. Okay.
yes.
Go ahead. Yeah.
But for those living under a rock, let me explain in one sentence each of the stages I went through. So, stage 1, Ricardo Guerra approached me at the Claire's at the Volusia Mall and said, "Can I help you?" Stage 2, Rico spent way too much exuberant time with me in various locations, such as the market, the Volusia Mall, whatever.
And who the and who and pardon my just so I can fully understand the timeline. So who the hell is this Rico bloke character? Who is this Rico guy?
Rico was Ricardo Guerra. His name appears in some legal files, so I'm going to just, we got to put a name and a face to this, but Ricardo Guerra was an older man who was a BEP program participant, as in business enterprise, for those people who don't even know what the heck BEP is. But Daytona's rehab center offered the business enterprise program to people wanting to do the Randolph Shepherd stuff. So that's what he did. In relation to Rico, I was basically a summer job person, and I was trying to get into the world of work.
Okay.
I wasn't sure what I wanted to do for college at
You
that
were at
time.
some, so you were at one of these sort of like, kind of like
The summer
like a
programs.
summer program where you learn like how to work, you learn work skills, but is it geared only to blind people, or is it like for anyone though? Like
It was
this.
for blind people. Basically, it was the Daytona Rehabilitation Center for the Blind and Visually Impaired.
Okay,
That's where it
got.
was.
Oh, okay, okay. So then what? Okay, so then what? So
Mhm.
this Rico clown. So then what happens? Okay, so stage 2. Go ahead. Yes.
Stage 2 was okay. Stage 1 was the approach. Stage 2 was the actually stage 1 was the detection. Stage 2 was approach. There's a stage 3 subjugation and stage 4 grooming. They go hand in hand frequently. I don't even think I ever want to put them in one separate stage, but about those stages, Rico had me alone in a lot of areas. And then he started asking me to massage every part of his body. And stage 5, I ended up, well, going to places I don't want to go and touching the man's private parts. And I ended up telling people on Facebook, look, I was blamed for touching a man's private. I mean, he was even telling me, you got to touch my private parts. And,
Ew.
he was making advancements that were not very
Yuck.
nice. And I was only
Oh.
17. Yeah, I tell you. So
Well,
what's the
wait.
response?
I'm a man who's 29, almost 30, and I find that
30?
behavior. Well, okay.
Disgusting.
I turned 30 in July, and I find Rico's conduct uh, inexcusable and
Disgusting.
inexcusable and disgusting
No.
and highly offensive to successful men such as myself, who would never treat you or anyone else like that. So that's very
Yes.
offensive, extremely offensive to me as a man, that we have these predators working. And and I'm sure you saw all the different complaints about the various problems that they've been having at all the blindness centers around the country these days. I mean, I
Oh
think
God, yes. I
right.
actually have read not one, not two, but 3 articles about Ruston. Like
Yeah.
what? The
LC LCB. Yeah.
LCB Ruston, yeah.
Yeah.
And I've actually been to the CCB. But here's the kicker.
Right.
Because of Rico's conduct, my parents were like, well, we want Rico to go away. And so what do? Their response was, we're going to get a guardianship of you, Beth, because we don't want you to go near all these men. Well, then how am I going to find a husband? Well, the truth was that my parents got this guardianship because they didn't really want me to have a husband. And they were scared that another Rico would show up and do the same crap that the original one did. But there are too many Rico Guerras out there who are just like doing things and they know that the woman will get punished. So if a man knew that, you know, and by then I submitted to such abuse because I was also being emotionally abused by my parents through high school. They were telling me not to go on dates, that nobody liked me. They were not being very affirmative to me at all. And the guardianship was just one more way for my parents to sit there and victim blame me. And I didn't even have the term victim blame until Me Too came out. Then because of the guardianship, I said, well, how can I prove to you that I don't need this? They wouldn't give me straight answers. And I ended up going to CCB. But the minute my parents got involved, for one, I was at CCB trying to learn to cook, clean, travel. And the last thing I needed to worry about was hunger. I was hungry all the time. I remember times I would pass out almost in class. I had practically nothing but Uncrustables in my freezer. I needed more than just things like from Chinese food stores. And I was starving. I only got like $200 a month. I didn't have very much support, but that $200 a month, I was restricted to $50 a week. And I had to buy groceries, food and incidentals. And I had to beg Julie, to beg my dad to give us money, to give me money so I could go get a banquet dress. That's how hard it was. And then I got so offended by my parents' actions that there was a time I was a convert to Islam, and I thought I was the stupid one who tried to find all the answers. But I had to leave the Muslim community due to, well, one, the guardianship. Two, I kept losing more friends. And three, I had friends sit there and hurl Islamophobic crap at me. Like one girl said, remember 9/11? And it just got worse. But when the guardianship was discharged, the damage was done. I've lost more friends than I can count, but like I said, I gained friends. But May was the worst. This May has been the worst I've ever had so far, because I have been trying to tell caseworkers and advocacy orgs that my housing is, quote, not safe and not stable enough to where my partner and I can possibly have a family. And the caseworker that I was working with, I'm not going to name her here. I don't want to name any caseworkers, and they're not really supposed to be on Facebook with their clients, which is fine because that's part of the social worker code of ethics. But my caseworker said, I can't help you with housing. I'm like, what? You want me to get care and you can't even help me with housing? And my care company got mad. They argued with my caseworker. She lied to them about things. And my caregiver has to do things a bit differently and wear some ring wraith costume, I like to call it. It's, you've ever watched Lord of the Rings, you see them all dressed in black and they have black steeds. So they're like black swords, whatever, black horses. And their costume is all black. They're just big blobs of black on horseback, to summarize it. But in her case, she's not even a big blob of black. But I told her, oh, you look like a plastic ring wraith, because she's all swathed in like a hazmat-y plastic thing with shoe coverings when she comes in. And now when I told her she looked like that, she laughed. We try to make humor come up in these really dark times. And because of the fact that I even had a guardianship, I think my caseworker is trying to lower my status, trying to think of me as less than a person. And she's not the only one. I've got the consumer orgs for the blind. I mean, I'm trying to avoid being part of such consumer orgs because the top brass and some of the brass I've worked with, they knew about the guardianship. The director of the CCB knew about it. and lowered my expectations and looked the other way when I tried to ask for it to be removed. And they said, well, you need something. I'm like, well, there's alternatives. And I'll also discuss that in my book as well. Shoot.
Yeah. Yeah. Really, really disturbing. And I'm really pleased that you're speaking out on this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I'm even happier that you're writing a book, because that really, that really puts it on paper. That really helps to educate people, to hopefully make other people with disabilities aware of how deadly these guardianships can be, and how out of control it can get. Very, 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 very out of control.
It is out of control. In fact, Florida, where I came from, is a hotbed of guardianship abuse. So it's no small wonder I told my parents, I said, I'm leaving. And one of the biggest kickers for me was they labeled me an internet addict. And they tried to tell me, well, you have to use the internet between 10 and 4 Eastern time. So for us here in the mountain states, it would have been 8 to 2. Only 7 hours a day of internet time. And that didn't work for those ladies and gents from Australia, people from New Zealand, anyone else who needed to talk to me at the moment. And what if I had to stay up late and do homework on the internet?
Yeah,
Because
what does I don't really understand. What does telling you when to use the internet? What's that have to do with it? What does that
it's
accomplish?
isolation.
I guess it's
It's
weird,
part of
but
the isolation tactic for guardians. What they do is they'll take your cell phone and your internet away at any time they want. And it's like, once my parents had this, they were like, we own you. That was how it was. And because of the guardianship, I can't even get a job. And I don't think it's going to be safe for me to get employment. I think it would not be safe, Aaron, because let's suppose I was employed in an office and you were one of my office mates. We go inside, we do our work, we go home. It happens 7 days a week. Then I get a promotion. I'm the executive, right? So I may be in charge of your office. Now I know, Aaron, you're a nice guy, but if you were someone different and I was saying, you're so fired, I caught you drunk with so-and-so, and then you walk out the door, the next day you come back with a gun. Did you hear the latest thing about the shootings in San Jose? I believe the gun owner guy was a disgruntled guy who found out he was fired. I don't want to ever be the person that is targeted by someone else, either because, oh, I remember you from so-and-so's podcast, or I remember you've been whining about blank, or I don't even like your book. I'd rather be putting my full focus on my activism journey so that I can safely be employed, maybe. But I don't know, that might be in the very distant future, because right now it's not safe to be employed as a disabled person. Also, not only because of the gun culture and the too much recognition, e-recognition, there's also the possibility that someone from a consumer org may show up and try to make you do something that's not in your job description. You may also be asked to do things like, oh, well, I don't know. There's a lot of sexual harassment at work as well. And I have met several dudes who have gone down for sexual harassment at work. We know some of the more famous names, like Matt Lauer went down for sexual abuse at work. And Charlie Rose, some of the other TV personalities are gone. We don't ever hear Bill O'Reilly anymore because, sexual harassment at work. And my partner wants to make sure that I'm a comfortable, happy person. And he's been incredibly supportive. Trenton Matthews is my life partner, I want to say. But he's my committed partner, my committed husband of sorts. We had a commitment ceremony in November of last year. And we decided that work just wasn't good for us. We want to raise a child without having to say, oh, well, you're going to have to be with the babysitter. And then we come back with less money to pay the babysitter than we're supposed to get. And that's really, really challenging for a lot of even sighted people. But then, you know, there's a lot of ways that the society likes to keep disabled people poor. And we want to fight that too.
And you know what is really, really concerns me about all of this is if society only
Mhm.
understood. You know, people
Mhm.
always say, you know, it's the economy, don't you know? Well, don't you know it would be healthier for the economy if everyone worked, if even with all people with disabilities, it would be a lot better for the economy as a whole
Mhm.
if we were given jobs and if there were more jobs. That would make the whole country a hell of a lot stronger. But
It
unfortunately we have a segment of society, as you know very well, Beth. We have a segment
Mhm.
of society that, you know, on the surface they might not be a bad person, but fundamentally speaking they are the essence of evil. They truly fundamentally are evil people who just believe that certain people just are not able and shouldn't be allowed to have, you know, upward mobility and economic freedom. And
Mhm.
what you end up with is you end up with a poor country with a lot of very unhappy people. Now, who wants that? Not me, and certainly not
I
you.
don't want that either. I certainly don't want that either. If I were to choose a job, though, see, I was set up for failure, it looked like. I mean, I wanted to go to college, I wanted to be a choir director. I have
Okay.
a buddy named Kristen who's already a choir director, and she writes a lot about her, you know, her student life, and her whole Facebook is dedicated to the confessions of a chorus teacher. And I'd rather be writing something like, just imagine a Facebook post that would read something like this, colon, oh God, you know, you've been using dictation way too much when you say a colon or some kind of weird,
Not to mention
oh,
you
I
said it
love this.
and you said it twice. So in other words, you start a sentence with colon. I thought you started a sentence with a capital letter.
You do start sentences with capital letters.
No,
I do
apparently not.
apologize.
No, apparently not you. Apparently you start a sentence with a colon. So you spell my name colon capital AARON.
Oops. God. Well, no, the colon would have gone at the end of the phrase.
Okay.
Sorry.
Let's figure out a place for the colons. Okay. What are you going to say without the colon? That's what I'm concerned about.
Okay. So imagine a Facebook post that might read something like, we conducted with some Handel songs with the choir. One of the students asked me, what if I wore this to choir festival tomorrow? We then did something with do re mi and some stupid little sight singing sheet. And I confess that half the choir is sick. I don't know what to do. Blah, blah, blah. Hashtag confessions of a chorus teacher. I never want to write anything more about being unemployed. But my God, I don't like these stupid college degree requirements. And do you know how many barriers I've seen with books? Tuition and books is one thing, but you got to read them books. And if DVR says you're a psycho moron, and I'm not saying that to anybody in particular, I'm just saying what they kind of did. They basically went and slurred at me with their actions. Colorado DVR and Florida DVR both would not support my dreams. Or they might say, oh, well, you're unemployable. And that doesn't help. I don't want to just do a workaday job where it's, let's suppose you were my boss, Aaron. You go in there and you're bossing me around, and I have to sweep the floors and I have to saw something off a piece of wood. Or if you say, get me my coffee, ma'am. Not that you would do that. I'm just saying, because there are just some guys, I swear to God, intimidating. And I don't like to make coffee because coffee smells kind of nice when it depends on the coffee smell, and it depends on the creamer and things you put in it. But I do like the smell of Starbucks coffee, and Trenton manages to make it smell like Starbucks. But I don't like the smell of stale office coffee. But that's minor compared to the major stuff. Like, I want upward mobility, and I realize that a teacher job isn't going to offer that. But at the same time, I want to be able to be appreciated for my work. Because for one, my dad would force me to appreciate him or take something away. I don't believe in that, but I certainly do believe in appreciating people for their work. And it has to start with the person appreciating the appreciatee. So that's why we have things like Teacher Appreciation Week, Secretary's Day, or Administrative People's Day. But what's really sad about society is women don't get appreciated for anything. I mean, Aaron, if you're a single dad, for instance, and if I said, Aaron, I have to leave, and you watch the kid for a while, and I come home and my kid is clean and not crying for want of a clean diaper, or they're full, or they're content suckling on a bottle, whatever, you're pretty much labeled super dad. But not one time do I hear single mothers say, I did all the work and you don't even appreciate me enough. Like, I hear a lot of single moms complain about appreciation and their husbands don't often appreciate them. So like, if I was in that position you were in earlier, you come home, the baby's happy, the baby's playing around, throwing Legos on the floor, or, their stomach is full for the formula, the diaper's clean, the clothes are clean, the house is spotless. Nobody appreciates that. And my partner is one of few people who will appreciate anything I say or do.
Yeah, I completely understand your point, and it's a
Mhm.
point well taken, and you're
Yes.
100 you're 100% right. I
Mhm.
mean, specifically speaking, I think that one of the things that you should definitely continue to do
Yes.
is your podcast. You should strongly
Mhm.
get into YouTube, because
Ooh.
more people watch YouTube than listen to podcasts. Um, so I would.
Oh yeah. My podcast right now is distributed on Anchor. It's on Spotify. People like Spotify too, but I think I will probably have to get a new YouTube channel for this because I misspelled or wrong. I don't even know what word to say, but I don't like my damn YouTube username and I don't have enough followers. So I'm going to need to make a new channel on the same email. And frankly, I'm not sure because I also like using Anchor for post production because, like, when we're talking right now, Aaron, what I'm saying to you right now, what I do with my stuff is I put background music on it. Like, for the more serious stuff, I do the calm or the dramatic. They have all these categories of background music, and I can put things like this one. There's one particular background track. I can't remember its name, but except there's Morning Color Wheel as well, and I use
Mhm.
that for more somber subjects. And then if it's a subject with some humor in it or a happy thing, then there's a folksy category. There's one I'll use for the more somber stuff, but then I'll put like Betty Deer in the background for something like when I say big changes are coming to my podcast. Yoo-hoo! You know?
Right. Oh, definitely. Yeah. Yeah, I'm on
Yeah.
Anchor and I'm on Anchor too, and those are the tools I use as well. So yeah, Anchor is really good for
Uh-huh.
distribution and setting it up like that. But I
Mhm.
will say that yeah, YouTube is really good for getting your
Mhm.
message out for sure.
I would definitely love to get the message out on YouTube, but there are just a few things I don't like. For instance, if you want to monetize your channel, you can't say a long list of words, algorithms, and then there's censorship everywhere.
Yeah.
Trenton and I constantly follow the news on that subject, but I wanted to tell you what I do cover in my podcast besides the guardianship.
Sure, sure.
I also cover social justice issues as I see them. Like, what I try to do is I use the lens of disability and other justice, and I try to cover what the news won't cover. That's kind of what I'm doing. For
Excellent.
example, with when we do, say, Jacob Blake, that dude that got shot in Kenosha, Wisconsin, and he's paralyzed now. I am wondering if the police will ever come to terms with this and say, oh, great, now he's in a wheelchair. He can't even get off the chair and into the toilet. He can't pick up dropped items. And so what does that have to be solved by? You know, I want the officers to pay for a canine companion for this dude so that he can, because companion dogs are wonderful. Like, they get all these different commands they have to learn by like age 2, and then they get more training at places like Paws for a Cause, helping hands is for monkeys, sorry. Canine Companions for Independence is the main one. There's a lot of other places, but then you can also get, like, there are programs that will train a dog with you in your home, which is cool. I've seen that with a girl I knew with disabilities and stuff. So I think it's time that we kind of understand. And I also want to advocate for barrier-free housing everywhere for people with disabilities, because when you're in a wheelchair, and blindness is even so minor compared to those other things, like, wheelchair folks need a bathroom with bars in it. I mean, I'm lucky I live in an apartment with a shower that has bars in it, but there's no bar near the toilet, and that's okay because, well, I don't have a wheelchair. But it would be nice if we had more accommodations for the modern housing market for people with disabilities without doubling and tripling the price on it. And I think we need to start thinking about ways we can do that as a society, putting disabled people first in the housing market, because you want to know how many people with disabilities are homeless?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's countless numbers. Like, we need to find ways we can house everybody or give them a place to call home. But Habitat for Humanity has changed its policy from when they first came. They will not help somebody with Social Security. They will not help you unless you have a job. And I cannot get a job, like I said, because of e-recognition. My podcast is pretty much my job. And I've put sponsored ads in there. And I'm going to see if I can find more charity sponsorships. But the best thing I can do is make a sponsorship ad and put it on there. And I can get lots of views, which will then allow me to get lots of moolah, you know?
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, when I turn off the record, I'll tell you a little idea that just popped up in my mind. Look, I think you're someone who is so,
Mhm.
like, on the right track.
Mhm.
You're everything you've said is correct. I just cannot agree with you more. The only thing
Mhm.
I haven't figured out in all of this, we'll have to get you set up. We'll have to we'll definitely have to put you in touch with some people that I know of. As I said, Rebecca Meadows is an expert,
Mhm.
and shares your story. The stories that you have been telling are eerily similar to hers, um,
Mhm.
and very different, but disturbingly the same. And she is most definitely, as you are, a national expert in dealing with these messes.
Yeah.
The other thing that I would strongly recommend is that you never ever stop podcasting, because I this week I don't know. Beth, did you? I mean, it's totally fine if you haven't. Have you ever, like, listened to any of my content or played any of my episodes?
Crap. Maybe you should
So
just put
no,
a link.
so no,
I'm
so
afraid not, but
so
do give
no,
me your
that is
channel
fine.
somewhere.
I might have. I
Mhm.
thought I did. I thought I did. Do you just want? How do you like to listen to someone else? Just over Anchor, or do you want me to just send you my Anchor page and then you can figure it out from there, or what?
I don't care how I listen, but if you're on like Apple, Spotify, YouTube, I'll find you anywhere I can find you. But I just need to know.
Yeah, I'll send you.
You
You know
could
what?
send me the YouTube channel.
I'll
Send me the
send you.
YouTube channel.
All right, yeah. I'll send you the YouTube, and
Mm-hmm.
then I'll send you my my distribution profile, my official page on Anchor, and then you can pick the platforms from there. Yeah, because
Mm-hmm.
I've just been having a lineup of just incredible guests. Definitely listen
Mm-hmm.
to the episode on my channel that's going to come before yours. About
Mm-hmm.
it's about a man who's not blind, like us, but still had
Mm-hmm.
his own challenges in life. And the other thing to remember in all of this is, and I
Mm-hmm.
forget it, and I have to improve my in my own life and remember that even sighted people have
Mm-hmm.
challenges. It's just less noticeable. So this guy was talking about his whole spiritual journey and basically
Uh-huh.
learning, not saying you are not, but learning how to love yourself and how to forgive. And I think that that's, if I were to give any advice, not that it's any of my business
Oh, it's okay.
to do so, but if I were to give even the tiniest bit of counsel, I would say, look, you by no means am I justifying anything that's happened to you, which I'm sure as hell not. But the
Uh-uh.
sad truth, Beth, is that you, unfortunately, you are not alone. And the other really scary thing is that some people, I've heard of some stories that are actually even worse than yours, which is truly concerning. So
Uh-huh.
I mean, your story, I mean, you've been through a lot, no question. But really, I've heard, even the saddest thing of all is I've heard a lot worse. And
Yeah,
I
me
would,
too.
and so where are you in the production line, or the production of your
Book.
book? Yeah.
I'm actually on the first chapter and I'm going to do the first parts. The first chapter will discuss the basic vocabulary, and then I'm going to talk about cases in the next chapters about each of the terms, like beginning the process, how does a guardian incapacitate a person,
Hmm.
and then I'll talk about like each of the things I talked about, like the moving pieces and the parts that make up this big freaking monster. And then I'm just going to go into how to destroy a guardianship, how to get rid of it. I'm also going to talk about why sometimes people get guardianships and talk about resources. I've got some research data I need to look at, and I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, but I'm in the
That's
first
fine.
phases. Yeah. But also I was wanting to, I'm going to just plug your stuff if you don't mind. If you like what you heard here on the podcast, feel free to subscribe and on YouTube and follow anywhere else. And I wanted to also bring to your attention, Aaron, that Apple is and Spotify are doing these things where you you have people subscribe for money on your channel and then it monetizes your stuff.
Right.
I forget how that works, but
Yeah, I saw. So I monetize differently. I monetize externally through Patreon. So I have a Patreon.
I
And that
was thinking about that too, but I want to do levels, but then that might complicate things.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
I don't know.
Um, I have like a little group of people, and each month I get money from it. So
Oh.
it's a really easy way and a really simple way to basically monetize yourself without
Hmm.
without having to go through all those extra jump through all those extra hoops. So yeah, definitely get into
Extra hoops,
Patreon.
yeah. I'll definitely consider
Hmm.
Patreon,
It
and
works.
I'll definitely, yeah, and then I can give people access to say some bonus stuff because I
Yeah.
kind of like that idea. But I mean, that's
Hmm.
a podcaster's thing. And that's why I want to do this, because it's great. I get paid to create the content that interests people. And for those who do like my podcast, if you like, follow whatever my podcast, and you want to hang with Aaron for a while, like his stuff, because um I'm going to ask you to come on mine in a little bit too. Oh, well, you can just go on each other's podcasts, whatever. But big changes will be coming to my podcast because I got some ideas from another podcaster, a friend of me and Trenton's. Uh, She lives in California. I love you, Melissa. She's so funny. But she gave me an idea of recording the podcast from the literal throne room in my apartment. And I just had to laugh because I said, what the hell? Does anyone really want to hear somebody talking on the toilet? Because that's what we call a throne in my house. The John, the Lou, the toilet. And I'm like, I've actually done that once or twice, and I find it very weird, but very exhilarating, I guess.
Okay. All right. That concerns me. Okay.
Well, it's not like I'm gonna, do anything while I record. I'm just gonna sit.
Well, that's what
That's all.
I'm kind of nervous about that, you know.
I know everybody's nervous about changes anyway. The other changes I'm gonna make is I'm gonna try to put some more humor into some things, except where the things are a little bit too disturbing to put humor to. But I'm also thinking of reviewing all my favorite movies, a la Lindy West style. If you know who she is, she wrote the book. Please excuse the word, but Shit Actually is the name of the book. And it's on Bard, Braille audio reading download for you cavemen out there. It's also available Audible. From Hachette Audio, they put it on Audible. And I'm also subscribed there as well. I love books. And I want to try to do some film reviews as a member of the Toilet Squad and do it Lindy style, like a little bit of, for example, when she reviewed Love Actually, she literally tore it apart. You got to read how she does it. I'm not going to spoil it. But the only thing I'm going to say is she does this thing where she says, oh my God, we're at an effing airport. And she just says these so crazy things about each of the characters, and she makes fun of each of the characters. It's really funny. And I'm going to do it that way because I like how she does it.
So you want to do some reviews of things. Well, another thing to review is products, right? Products for the visually impaired. Where you get a product and it.
What if I reviewed mainstream products and talked about how well they work for the visually impaired?
That too. Yeah.
Because I think products for the visually impaired get too much attention. And they're also for a niche market as well. So let's say I wanted to get a liquid measurer, or if I wanted to get, you know what? I should review my blender. I love my blender and I want to make something in it one day without making a big mess, of course. But as far as the blender goes, I want to review how it's usable and stuff. And with a little help from Be My Eyes, I was able to do a cheat sheet, which basically told me what each button does. And that was all I really needed to do. And then I also had jewels on it. Like, we decorated the blender buttons with jewels and it worked really great. So I may have to make I would like to make me a peach smoothie one of these days, but peach smoothie. It's not bad. I've got frozen peaches in my freezer. So I do want to make a peach smoothie.
Yeah, that is good, especially for the summer. I completely agree about that. So when you are not recording, the podcast, how else how
else do I spend my time?
Actually, yeah, answer that, and then I want to answer that, and then I have a concluding question. But yes, tell us, yes.
Okay. Well, I like to browse recipes. I have favorite films I like to watch. I just got done watching Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. And I love the Harry Potter franchise. I also
Same here.
Oh my God. We could get into that later. Also, I also like to, drink a lot of 7-Up and soda, and I just hang out and, I do what? Sorry.
No worries.
What the heck happened? Sorry, my echo. My Echo is so weird. It likes to wake up. I've got two dots in here, and then I've got a show in the living room. And I do like to mess around with my dots at times. Sometimes my partner will put white noise on and we just hang out and relax. And, because activism work is so dangerous that I wouldn't recommend it to just anybody. It's not for the faint of heart. That's all I'd say.
Well, Beth, it's really been a pleasure. It's been a
Mm.
pleasure and honor having you on my podcast. Really glad you came.
Hmm.
Really
Thank you.
glad you're a forever member of Aaron's Opinion, the Aaron's Opinion franchise or family or whatever you want to call it. But you are always welcome on my podcast any day.
Mm.
That's a forever promise. But I do have one
Thank
question.
you.
If you could, you're always
Mm.
welcome. If you can ask me,
Yeah.
if you can ask me only one question, to see if I'm really worth my salt, to really make me sweat. What do you want to ask me? What do you want to ask Aaron Richmond?
That's a hard one. I would guess this is going to sound like the most mundane question ever, but what is your favorite flavored soda?
That's a great question. If I could design a soda, that's a cool one. If I could design a soda, I would definitely make it taste like kind of like coffee or cream or kind of more like an alcoholic soda flavor, that sort of smoky flavor that you would get in whiskey, more like that, more rustic, a more earth-like rust-like
Mm,
flavor. Yeah, yeah. All right.
actually, yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. All right, everybody. Well, I tell you what, let's end the interview here. Do not hang up. I have a couple more things that I want to say offline. So
Oh,
thanks
thank
so
you.
thanks so much, Beth. And don't forget, there's one very important thing for next time. Any future podcast, you have to know. Don't forget, colon, gotta put the colon.